Thank you for watching the Whittemore Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Good evening, good evening.
Hey, Brother Edward.
Hey, good evening to you, Sister April Garner, co-host.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm making it. I am making it one day at a time.
This virus is making us do that, okay?
Yes.
It's demanding that. Anyway, it's also demanding some good genealogy research, okay? And this is good for our viewers. I hope our viewers are paying close attention. As you can see, I'm your host, Ed McQueen, and co-host, Sister April Garner. So this week, we want to carry on as a pick up from our last broadcast, which involved a good taste of genealogy based in the Bucksport area, based on the slaves, the graves of some of the slaves that they were unearthed, diligent by Kevin Mishoe and others, Miss Owens, and one of our hosts today, Mr. Grant Mishoe. So just want to advise you that we're on every Monday, 7 p.m., okay, on YouTube. And if you checked out the promo, we try to make it easier for you to you have 3 venues of listening to us and looking at us, okay? So this week live, hey April, do I start off with our our condolences and our best wishes to all of our sick and shut in, and indeed we've had a number of losses over the past week for the community, but the Whittemore Community Magazine live is going worldwide because Facebook is one of our venues for receiving our audiences. So this week, like I said, we're going to pick up from our last show, and we're calling it this time "Shaking the Family Tree." And man, we've got some results of but a task which involved DNA testing, which is going to reveal something about your family lineage. And if you want to pick up on this, I think this would be some very, very interesting knowledge you should pick up on. So this week's live and it's going to feature discussion with Grant Mishoe of the Gullah Society, and who's going to talk about the important work of genealogy and how the study of your DNA and lineage can reveal very important information about your family's history. So in light of the fact that we're going to be streaming some time tonight, and it's going to be because we are going to be, not encroaching, but going to be starting and depending on how this thing goes, the Democratic Convention begins tonight, and we want to make sure that we cover a whole lot before that begins tonight. And as always, if those of you who've looked at us, we've got some interesting topics and information that's for you all, and that's the information I'm getting on the street. So just tune in, and let's start with our best wishes and our condolences, starting out over there in Aina, South Carolina, and Allentown, Loris, Fankley, Green Sea, Charlotte, North Carolina today, Wilmington, North Carolina, Tabor City, just locally. We're going to get back to the capital of Conway in a few minutes, but just locally here, talking about Waupee, Burgess, all the good people, Myrtle Beach, South Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, Merle's Inlet, Georgetown, South Carolina, where you got Brother Steve Williams down there, editor or columnist for the Georgetown Times, and Waupee, Beaufort, by the way, they're coming, okay? Hearing from everybody. Long, South Carolina. Help me out, April.
I was actually you were on a roll. I didn't want to stop you.
All right.
Keep going. Keep going.
I'm going to say Little River. What's next?
Big River.
All right. All right. All right. So those of you that we left out, did I say Marin? Mullins?
Mary Mullins.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Looks like in the thread we have Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thank you for watching with us. Columbia, South Carolina. Thank you for watching with us.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Socastee, thank you for watching.
Socastee.
Yeah. Socastee is represented.
You'll
get a call if you don't say something about Socastee. You know you will.
Okay. And we won't forget about Bucksport. Okay. Which is probably the kind of focus in an indirect way today. Now, April, you know what the capital of Conway is?
Oh, absolutely. Sugar Hill, where I was born and raised and currently reside. Sugar Hill, exactly. That's the capital of Conway. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. That's
okay,
right.
We're glad all of you can tune in today. Okay.
Yes.
And we try to have just fun on the show at the same time. But most of our topics are really serious and impacts the community one way or the other. Of course, in conjunction with this COVID-19, every Friday on the network at 4 p.m. It's 8. And you know who the doc does his research. Dr. Winston McIver does research. And congratulations to the doc. And we're thankful for the doc, by the way. So, and all of you out there. And hopefully we name a lot. If not, chime in, send us something on the chat. And we'll make sure that we'll do it retrospectively, okay? For lack of a better word. Okay. So today, like we said, we're going to be shaking the family tree, and we've got some results, revelations of DNA testing about your family, and this is going to be applicable to your family, our viewers out there, a family lineage. And we've got Mr. Kevin Mishoe.
We have Grant Mishoe.
I'm sorry. I really
I've been doing it all day too. Maybe it's because they're family. I don't know. Maybe they're cousins. They share a surname. Maybe that's it.
I can be facetious and say they don't look alike, but
they will find out in just a moment. They look nothing alike.
Let's go.
That's the beauty of genealogy. You can find out a lot of amazing things, right?
Okay, April, you can. You mind introducing our guest?
All right. Well, I'm gonna let him introduce himself. I'm gonna bring him into the stream now. We have Grant Mishoe of the Gullah Society. How are you, Grant?
Fine. How are y'all today?
Oh, we're great tonight. Thank you so much for rejoining us and for this part 2 of our talk about genealogy and DNA. We're going to shake the family tree today. And as Brother Edward has introduced to everyone, Grant is going to talk about a lot of things that are related to genealogy and just kind of give you an overview of what it all means and how you can actually use this particular study. It's kind of become an art in a sense. I'm fascinated every time I talk to Grant about everything that he discovers along the way. And then we're also going to have a moment where I will share my DNA test from 23andMe. They are not a sponsor. We're not pushing it or anything like that. I just want to put that disclaimer out there. It just happened to be the test that I used, and I plan to use a couple of others that are out there. But Grant will help us to understand what is comprised in this test, the test results, the things that you will see as far as my test results, at least a few things, not everything, but for the most part. Let's start with Grant just telling us a little bit about himself. Remind the viewers of who you are.
My name is Grant Mishoe. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. My family has been here since the 1690s. We were French Protestants, Huguenots. And my family came into Jamestown in Berkeley County, and they settled there. And then one brother went towards Horry, and the other brother went towards Williamsburg. My grandfather and my father both came from Conway. And I followed in their footsteps. I became a firefighter, and I retired as a captain on a heavy rescue. And but I've been doing genealogy for like the past 30 years. You know, kind of doing it here, doing it there. School of hard knocks, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten serious about it because now I'm involved with the nonprofit. I've gotten serious about it the past 5 or 6 years, where basically that's what I do. And so I'm the Gullah Society's genealogist and historian. And basically, my job is to do research on old cemeteries and African American, African descendant genealogy, and try to reacquaint families with the cemeteries and protect the cemeteries and that type of thing. We do many other things, but my main thing is just doing the cemeteries.
Right. Okay. So how does genealogy differ from family history?
Well, genealogy genealogy uses documents and records to verify dates and locations of where your family lived at, and births and deaths and marriages. Family history is basically the story of what your ancestors did when they were alive. So they kind of go together, but they're completely separate. Um, the So the genealogy is basically you're researching birth, death certificates, marriage, certificates, graveyards, bank records, different things like that. So I mean, it's all it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to, if you have a big family, sometimes you have to backtrack through another family member to get back to the other one to try to connect them and everything. So it's an art form, believe me.
Mm-hmm. That's what I said earlier. It just sounds like it's an art, and absolutely. And I can imagine the difficulty, especially when you deal with situations where you don't have any records of the descendants or the ancestors. And so how do you start from like point one? Where do you even begin if you have a situation like that?
Well, with African American, African descendant genealogy, it's we have this proverbial 1865 wall that we run into. And basically when slavery ended, that's kind of a wall for us, because it works out sometimes. Most of the time it doesn't. We can go farther back if they're a free person of color. We can definitely get census records and that type thing. But if they were enslaved, they by law, a enslaved person could not have a surname. So they would just be known as Bob, that type thing. They wouldn't have a surname. As it got closer to the Civil War and toward the end of that, you saw a lot more people using surnames of the black population. And it was and then of course when June 19th happened and everybody, then you just had this flood, boom, all these people that were once enslaved or whatever, all of a sudden, bam, had a last name, and it was there's a lot of records, but previous to that, it's kind of hit and miss because of the lack of surnames and that type thing. We do have some decent enslaved records. Low Country Africana has a lot of the owner's records and has the enslaved by name, and you can use that for cross-reference and that type thing. It gets real difficult because there is if I had a dime for every time I found an enslaved person with the name Scipio, I'd own the magazine. I mean, because Scipio, Boston, Pompey, those are very popular names, and sometimes you might have 5 or 6, in the record you're looking at, and which one's which.
Right.
So it's gathering your oral history and your family records, family Bibles, anything that if you have an aunt, an uncle, or a grandmother, grandfather that writes down the family history, as he remembers it, that's a good source. The problem with, and I've learned this the hard way, is every time you speak with an elderly person in the family, make sure you copy down what they say or record it.
Oh yeah.
Because they will not be there forever, and they remember a lot of things and it's not written down. So record it, or write it down. If they're writing it down, take it and expand on it, that type thing. Because if you get a person that's upwards of 90s, that type thing, they still got a sharp mind, they can go back 90 years. And of course their parents, which were before that, were telling them things. And I find in my research that the African American and African descendant population, when it comes to family, they're very, very close with with the information and stuff. They pass down what the grandfather did, what the great grandfather did, or grandmother, great grandmother, that type thing. And it's excuse me, it is a rarity compared to Caucasian or European DNA, because it's there, plain, and
it's documented.
Yes, and it's you almost take it for granted sometimes, And with African American and African descendant genealogy, every little scrap of information, even if it's like information again, a circle, say one thing, by the time it gets back around to you, it's different, but you won't go on one source. You'll cross-reference it with different sources, that type thing. Like you have a cemetery out in the middle of the woods, and you got grandparents buried in there. You don't have any idea where it's at, but the cemetery by a certain name. But when they passed away, were buried in there, the cemetery might have been known by another name, and stuff like that. Street names change. Property that was once in Georgetown might now be in Horry. Lines changing. Somebody that might have been listed as living in, outside the limits of Conway back in the 1860s might very well be part of Conway now.
Right.
So you have to keep your mind open with thinking back about what was going on when that happened.
And then when you and I were chatting about the lineup for the show, we talked about the birth certificate information, and I've even found that some funeral records are not available because at some point certain funeral homes either they lost the records before a certain time period, or right. They still don't have the haven't really digitized everything, and so the records are just kind of a little piecemeal. So, when it comes down to birth certificates and gift and funeral records and things of that nature, I'm sure it's difficult too to pull that kind of information together.
Yes, the Avery Institute downtown on Wentworth Street, they have.
And that's in Charleston?
Yes, ma'am. They have several African American funeral homes like Harleston and I can't remember right offhand, but I know by looking for things, they have these records down there still in paper form. So when you have these funeral homes either closed because people got old or went out of business or whatever, a lot of these records went to Avery. I'm not exactly sure how many they got, but I know it's several. They have the Jenkins Orphanage records, which is, a big resource. The different documents and stuff that you can use, it's kind of in a two-part series. Excuse me. record sources to use 1869, 1870 on. You have cemeteries, funeral home records, birth and death certificates, marriage and divorce, obituaries, published biographies and family histories. Sometimes, they'll do a book for a family reunion, and you'll have this information that's compiled by several different people in the family, whatever, and they'll put this book, and you can get a copy of this book at the family reunion, and it has your family lineage in it.
Right.
Old city directories, old phone books. Used to be before phones, they had city directories that basically listed the person's name, what they did, where the residence was, and if you were African American, it had C for colored next to your name. And those are invaluable resources. Charleston has a lot of them. There's a lot of them in the South Carolina room at the main library on Calhoun Street. It's really bad for Horry County when it comes to death certificates, because they didn't do death certificates till I think after the 1920s or something like that.
Okay.
Charleston, we've got death records from 1819 to 1968. So they in like ledger form. And the U.S. Census records. If you were a free person of color, you were listed in the census records, and you could see where they lived at. And as the census records went on, from the 1850 to 1860, 1870, 1880, things changed. They added more stuff to it. So by the time you got around the 1900, it was listed like how many marriages you had, and the woman, it said how many children you have, how many children are still living, that type thing. But in the early ones, it just lists the head of household and just the family, and where they were born, that type thing, and very sparse. But it is good. It does have that information.
So before 1870, what did they use as far as records are concerned?
Well, you had you had the enslaved records that listed the slave owner, and in the newspaper, you would have a lot of information on when a slave ship would come in. They would take the information from that ship and say, like, Ship Hope is come in, and they have 380 prime Congolese, men, that type thing, for sale at the ship, that type thing. And what I've done is I've created a database on the slave ships that had come to Charleston, and on the west coast of Africa, a lot of them came from the west coast up in the Bight of Benin, that type thing. But very rarely did they ever go around to the east side to Mozambique. But if you have somebody that you think came from Mozambique, you could look at those slave records, those slave ship records, and if they had 5 ships that came from Mozambique from 1700 to 1810, and this person was a certain age, and you knew the dates they came in, you could literally get it down to maybe 1 or 2 ships that they came in on. And every time a enslaved person ran away, they had ads in the newspaper, runaway slave, here's the name, here's what they look like, and everything like this, and offering money for their return. And they had their name and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all sorts of different sources that you can use. But in the end, you're going to be cross-referencing some to find out about another, to see if it jives with this one. So I mean, it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
One thing's for sure is if you use Ancestry or Family Search, Ancestry is a good service. Family Search is a good service. I like it because of the way the trees lay out, the family trees lay out and stuff. I never trust anybody else's research because garbage into a computer equals garbage out of the computer. You know, always do your own research. And you know, you might take some information from this other person's site and write it down, and then start doing more research on it, try to either verify it or to not verify it. That, you know, that type thing. In my family, there was two lines. I had my great grandfather was a fellow by the name of Daniel Mayberry Mishoe. And he married, I think it was his third cousin, Floriati Mishoe. And you go back 6 generations back and they come back to the same person. But in those two lines, each of those lines had a John W. Mishoe in the line. And my stepmother was able to figure it out. And because everybody that was putting stuff online had the John W. Mishoes mixed either way. And that was John W. Mishoe was the one from Bucksport.
Okay.
So, you know, and then when you verify it, then you just put it on, you know. And if somebody argues with you about it, that type thing, as long as you feel that you've got your research in order, you know, then just go with it.
And this research is mainly based upon historical accounts from the people in the family. What was the name of the resource again?
Well, you have ancestry.com, then you have familysearch.org.
Familysearch.org, that's what it is. Okay.
And one might have more than the other, or they might have another database that they've been, you know, transcribed differently, or I mean, one the other ones doesn't have. Freedmen's Bureau records. Freedmen's Bureau was set up by the War Department by an act that was done March 3rd, 1865. And basically, it's all the freedmen. They have these records that some of them had, when I'm going to work, they had them by name, what they did, different things like that, for it to basically get people working and different things. Then you also have the freedmen's bank records, where I think they go from 1865 to 1874, I think it is. And basically, in the registers, there's 67,000 listings, names, and basically they'll have the head of household, the wife, the children, who that person's parents were, the siblings, and if they're still surviving, that type of thing. And it's all right there, digitized right in front of you. So, and lots of them actually have their ancestor's signature on it, either their signature or their mark.
So let's take a step back. Doing your research, unless it's not available. But what about the preservation of ancestry at Utah, where they have the salt mines? Did you touch base with that? Or is that valuable to your?
You talking about the Mormon Church?
Right.
Yeah, they have it. I think they call the vaults Granite Mountain.
Right.
They have the two big main vaults that go back in there. Family Search, I think, is the majority of the LDS. So a lot of those records are there. I'm pretty sure Ancestry is too. I don't know for sure. I can't remember. But if there's anybody that does anything with genealogy, the Mormon Church is it. I mean, you know, they've got a library down here in Charleston that's good, but they're just so dedicated and detailed work with their records and stuff. And, you know, it's just, I mean, they spend a lot of coin on putting the paper records in those mountain vaults, right. You know, and they're steadily transcribing that stuff, you know, and it's, if we didn't have the Mormon Church doing that, genealogy as it is today would be way back.
Yeah.
You know,
Why
because
do
they really opened up opened up the world,
right?
world of genealogy.
But the background of their effort includes the origin of their effort. You know what? Was that part of the religion?
Yes, I'm not exactly sure how it is, but I know that they're very meticulous about their lineage, and I know it has something to do with their religion. I'm not exactly sure what the process is, or whatever, but it's definitely related to their doctrine and genealogy and family. That's one of the main things. And if I said that wrong, if anybody heard me, I apologize. But I know that it's very, very important to the Mormon Church, the genealogy.
Do you happen to have any graphics, other than what you may put up today? I don't know. That related to a drawing on a ship. For example, if you found something that was on paper about a slave ship.
Yeah, I got some. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me.
Well, I was going to take a quick commercial while Grant gets that set up. Is that okay? And that'll give you a chance to catch your breath.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll be right back. For all of your insurance needs, home, auto, and life, see how it feels to be on a #1 team with Tony McAfee of State Farm Insurance. Call Tony at 843-903-7800 or visit him at 3888 Renee Drive in Myrtle Beach. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Looking to start a new career? Train to work in Myrtle Beach. Classes starting soon. Free to eligible participants. Short-term, 3 weeks or less in hospitality, culinary, electrical, plumbing, and more at Horry Georgetown Technical College. There's more. Continuing education at 843-477-2020. Horry Georgetown Technical College, where there's more. Enjoy soul food the way your mama made it. You'll be surrounded by some of the best food in Horry County and affordable prices. Blue plate specials, senior plates, and more. Daily specials at Big Mike's Soul Food. Big Mike's Soul Food is located at 504 16th Avenue in Myrtle Beach. You can call your order in at 843-712-2048 or visit BigMikeSoulFood.net to find out about the latest specials. Big Mike's Soul Food. Soul food, the way your mama made it. Treating conditions from A to Z. Schedule an appointment today. Ask about acceptable insurance coverage at Waccamaw Primary Care, 660 Singleton Ridge Road, Conway, South Carolina. Dr. Winston D. McIver Jr., a trusted and reputable source in Horry County and beyond, has all you need for family practice and sports medicine. Call 843-234-4362 to schedule your appointment today. Waccamaw Primary Care, 660 Singleton Ridge Road, Suite A, Conway, South Carolina. 843-234-4362. Family owned and operated since 2001, a veteran owned company. We're your #1 property cleaning company serving Horry County and surrounding areas. Superior Window Cleaning has all that you need for residential and commercial property cleaning. Mention WCM Live and receive free window cleaning with power washing for up to 15 windows or free power washing for up to 200 square feet, flat work only with any window cleaning job. Call 843-889-7255. That's 843-889-7255.
We're back.
And we're back. Yeah, we're back. You usually say that. I was ready to say it.
For those of you who are looking forward to our moment in Black history, it's coming up. We'll just better hit another commercial at another time. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Well, I mentioned to our audience about our moment in Black history, but you've got something special coming yourself, right?
Well, yeah, we have a special piece from Kevin Mishoe about the Eddy Lake Cemetery. Exactly. Right. And then in the interest of time, we want to get through the 23andMe results, which are the results from my test. And when do you want to do the Black History moment?
We'll squeeze it in there wherever we can. you know, if we have the time, we'll squeeze it in. Okay.
You just tell me when. You just tell me when. Yeah.
Your next commercial.
Okay. All right. So Grant was going to show us some information that you mentioned right before the commercial break.
What was that?
Brother Edward had asked you to pull up a graphic.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Maybe some plans that they have of ships. I'm just envisioning that something like that.
Grant, will you mention for the viewers what we discussed as far as the number of ships that came into Port of Charleston?
That up right now. It's a lot. Let's see here. Go ahead and talk amongst yourselves for a second. I'm trying to find it.
Okay. Well, we can go into the Black History moment if you want, while Grant gets this information together that you asked for.
Yeah. You want to do that? All right.
Yeah, that's perfectly okay. I'll give you another quick commercial and then we can go to that, okay? All right.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Sister April and Mr. Mishoe, and of course, Brother Edward. How are you all doing?
We're all fine, Sister Joella. Thank you so much for being here for your Black History moment.
Oh, yes, ma'am. And to our beautiful listening audience, I'm not going to take up a lot of time because I know you have so much going on today. But I wanted to just share something that Mr. Grant is talking about in terms of the importance of keeping our history and also taking care of our cemeteries, because it is so important to know where people, our family members, were laid to rest. And I just wanted to share quickly about what happens when we don't carry on what we're supposed to do. I want to show a picture of first Mr. Joseph Rainey. And he was the first Black congressman, a senator in the history of our country. He was born in Georgetown, South Carolina, and he and his family had to leave because of the war, the Civil War breaking out, and they went to Bermuda. But he came back and he served his community quite well. And how this is so involved, we're going to take another picture of a person who was named after our school, Whittemore High School. And if Brother Edward can show him there, he was the one that preceded Joseph Rainey. And what happened was they became working together in the community. So what happened to Senator Joseph Rainey, they really don't know where he was laid to rest. They were talking about him maybe being buried in the Potter's Field, which is in Georgetown, South Carolina. But they're not certain because now there is a different businesses that were placed on that grave site, and it was for the poor. And so it's very important about what Mr. Grant is doing in terms of trying to find out exactly where Black enslaved people were buried. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to probably give more information about this because we're also working with our students and the summer program, and we want them to become involved with doing that kind of research. So again, if you have time, parents, take a look at Joseph Payne Rainey, the first Black congressman after Reconstruction. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm excited about what's happening this Saturday, August 22nd, 7 a.m. We're going to be out here at Eddy Lake Cemetery, Slave Cemetery. We're going to be starting phase 2 of our cleanup. So I'd like to thank April and Mr. McQueen for the opportunity to reach an audience, because we still need volunteers. For those that might be coming out, what our goal is going to be, if we're going to be trying to level all the growing foliage, as well as we'll be grinding and getting up the debris that would get us down to the graves themselves, so that we can actually look for any artifacts and remains that might be there. If you happen to have, this is called a bowl rake, bring that with you, or we can use cultivators, and we'll need fan rakes. We'll also, if you have a weed trimmer, we'll have some on site. We'll also have leaf blowers, that sort of thing. If you can operate one of those, fantastic. We'll have some extra ones in order to use. Now I want you to walk with me a little bit further into the body of the cemetery. I want to show you some of the things, just so you get an idea what to expect when you get here. Come on. Okay. Now what you're going to see when you get out here, you're gonna notice that there's depressions. These are believed to be grave sites that we have not yet found a marker to. Now the Historical Society has come out and they put out a lot of these little red flags that you'll see throughout the cemetery area. What we're going to be trying to do is get all of the debris off the top of the graves, get rid of the foliage, so that we're down to the bare grave, that we might be able to find any artifacts or headstones that are related to a particular grave. Now, we're going to move a little further back and show you all graves are not going to be alike, but I'm going to walk with me a little bit. You'll see that we begin to see some of the headstones into the area. It's going to be very important that we not touch the headstones with our hands, simply because the acid in our fingers will be so sensitive on stones that have such a long age to them. So let's walk a little bit further back and take a look at some of the ground areas that we will especially have to be sensitive about. Now, folks, here's a site that I'm very excited about, and we're going to have to be extra careful as we clean around this site. But this is one that we've talked about in previous conversations and videos. As you can see, this particular grave site is lined with the conch shells and seashells, the traditional burial style of our African ancestors. So we know that this is probably one of the first graves that was put into this slave cemetery, and it's gonna take probably pretty much by hand getting down. As you can see, there's seashells everywhere. As we dig down, the deeper we dig, the more of the conch shells we find. You can tell this is under the earth like these once were. And this area is actually littered with the conch shells, as if there was a reef around the grave. So once again, we're looking forward to having you all come out, help with this. This is our ancestors. This is our opportunity to do our part. So I hope to see you this Saturday, August 22nd, at Eddy Lake Cemetery here in the Bucksport area. Thank you, everybody.
All right, Brother Edward. So just wanted to let everyone know that was Kevin Mishoe, and he is one of the leaders of the Eddy Lake Cemetery project in Bucksport, along with Mary Owens and a couple of other people who are part of a committee that will not only lead the cemetery project, but they are also working on a Juneteenth celebration for, I believe, 2021, whenever they dedicate the actual cemetery. So if you are interested in helping out with that cemetery cleanup project this weekend, please text Gina Mishoe at 843-602-1403. I've put the information in the comments thread on the Whittemore Community Magazine's Facebook page. Please text him and they will give you all the information you need if you'd like to be a part of the cleanup projects this coming Saturday. So, Grant, have you had a chance to?
I have.
Okay, all right. You can
Let
go
me,
right ahead and do what you got to do.
Let me do this share screen here.
Looking forward to that Juneteenth.
The Juneteenth celebration, yeah, will be great. We had Frankie Weaver on a couple of weeks ago, in the team to talk about it. All right.
Fantastic.
All right, there you go. Okay. Here is a typical article in a newspaper in 1736. And they have these little icons like this right here. And basically it says, to be sold by Jennies and Baker, that's the slave brokers, in Charlestown on Wednesday the 25th of this instant, meaning, this week, August, a fine cargo of young, healthy slaves just imported in the ship Garlington, with Henry Watts as the commander. Now, there's no number of slaves they have. They just said they have a number of slaves. Now, I have my database right here. And basically, the ship Garlington and the other ad was for Princess Carolina. And they both came in 1736. They came in right behind one another. And if you could see me,
it's a little small. I don't know that everybody can see it. Yeah.
I'm trying to.
Look, go to your top. It says view. Go to the top up there. It says view. You press on it. Press view.
Yeah, I'm on there now. It doesn't have it.
Okay.
This is,
just give us an approximation.
Online, but basically, right here, I can do this though. There we go. All right. This is the slave database that I compiled. So they came in 1736. There was only a few ships that came in. There's the Princess Carolina. There's the Garlington. And Princess Carolina went to the Gambia River estuary, and the Garlington went to the Biafra and the Gulf of Guinea Isles, which are the islands just off the coast there. And here's the number of slaves that were on the ship when they started. That's how many they purchased: 409 and 211. 409, but they only arrived in Charleston with 303. The rest of them did not survive the Middle Passage. So you subtract that, and that's the number that's the number of the loss of cargo.
106 souls.
Correct. And we can let me see here. Go to.
I see that they said, I think either that's a misspelling, like here, it says Gold, I guess they meant Gold Coast instead of Gold, C-O-A-F-T. They got F-T. I don't know. This is English.
And some of this is also Old English.
Yeah.
Like even here, if you had like the word bass, the first S would be elongated. So it'd look like an F. It's a, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something from a European language. Back in the day, they did that. So you see right here, the ship, right here, you see that S? The ship's actually called the Hiscox.
Hiscox, yeah.
All right. Now this guy right here, ship Hiscox, and this was 1739. So we can go back to the database, and we'll go down to 1739, and there's the Hiscox right there. Angola, West Africa, and St. Helena Island. They started with 435 and they arrived with 300.
So based on that was a pretty sizable ships right there because I don't know what
you also got to think they were big, but there's been some drawings or engravings that were done on how the cargo was to be packed.
Yeah.
Basically. And there was no room for anything. I mean, they were packing their foot to head to foot. Every little space you can get, they packed them in there. And
for months.
oh yeah, absolutely. You know, and when they came into Charleston, if they had smallpox break loose, they had to go into the quarantine out of Fort Johnson on Sullivan's Island. They had to quarantine until the smallpox was eradicated from the ship. And I can't remember the exact year, but Charleston actually had to enact a law about if you had cargo that died because of smallpox, you had to bury them and not throw them in the river, because they had these bodies washing up on shore of these dead Africans that had died from smallpox. So, you know, if you have 4 or 5 ships in there, you can't tell which one it is. They just chunking the bodies over the side. They were washing up on the shores. And I just can't even fathom that. I mean, it's so this list. This is a list, and what it is there is a total of it's a long list, so I'm trying to get down to the bottom of it. Here we go. We're almost there. Okay. Between 1700 and 1810, there was 853 ships that traveled into Charleston with enslaved Africans on board. Total arriving, total purchased was 177,041 souls. The total that arrived was 150,380.
So what did they do a pre-purchase or did they purchase them from where they got them from?
Yes, they purchased them. They would either go to one place and get a full load, or they go to several different places, and they would take the cargo on board, and then they would bring them. And of course, sometimes they would die on the ship in the middle passage, and they didn't keep them. They just threw them in the ocean. You know, so there's 26,661 that never made it, and it's just the sheer number. And as I was telling April earlier, these numbers here are about less than 2% of the total amount of enslaved Africans that were purchased and brought over this direction. A lot went to South America, Brazil, and they went to England. They went to Dutch West Indies, the Caribbean islands, that type of thing, Puerto Rico and Cuba. But that number there represents a very, very, very small amount of what was actually brought over. And it's the figures are astounding when you start adding them all together and everything. So with the ads, they sometimes they had full ones like this, and you had just boarded with the hair, Captain Caleb Godfrey, directly from Sierra Leone, a cargo of likely and healthy slaves to be sold upon easiest terms on Tuesday, the 29th instant, by Austin and Lawrence. And this was an article in the newspaper. I mean, just in the newspaper. They're going to sell these people at the dock. Now, before, I think it was 1805, I think it was, sometime between 1800 and 1805, Charleston made a law that basically said all enslaved transactions has to take place at Gadsden's Wharf. Before that, they had tons of wharfs on there that they would come into the different ones. In fact, when they had the smallpox outbreak during that period of time, they were actually taking them upriver to Ashley Ferry and up to Fort Colonial Dorchester, which is about 3 miles from my house. And they were selling them there because Charleston was closed because of smallpox. And these ads were just in the newspaper. And it's like, it's over and over and over. You know, this is one from at Dorchester. I was telling you about 60 healthy young Negroes from the Gold Coast of Africa, and this was during 1763 when they had one of the smallpox outbreaks. So they were going at Dorchester, which is colonial Dorchester, up the Ashley River. So, you know, you can use this, but you'd have to have a lot more information to utilize this right here, because just by looking at this right here, you have, you know, 60 enslaved Africans that came from the Gold Coast. You don't have any names or anything like that, because, you know, that would all happen whenever they were purchased here. And it's really sad. I mean, it's I you know, it's kind of, whenever I was younger, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, you know, out of, you know, that type thing. And if it didn't bother me, it didn't, you know, concern me, it I didn't think anything about it. As I started doing the research and started doing more research and more research and more research, there's stuff I'm learning that was never taught to me in school. I mean, it's horrible that this wasn't taught in school. And the
Today either.
it's terrible. Like Denmark Vesey, after the attempted, whatever they called it, the insurrection or whatever, they had court, and there's actually a copy of the court transcript that you can. I have a digital copy of it, and it goes through everything what was going on. I can't remember how many were hung with Denmark was hung one day and the rest of them were hung another day, but there was 2 or 3 Caucasian men that were involved with the uprising. And basically what it was, they told the court, said, they told me is they give me some money to, you know, hold some weapons for them. Those guys got like a few months in jail while the rest of them were hung. Or if you were not found completely at fault, you were sent out of the country and you were not allowed to come back into the country under pain of death. I mean, it was, you know, or they would send you to another colony. And it's when you start looking at this stuff, it is very eye-opening. And I mean, this is the African descendant and African American. This is where it started at, right here, coming over. I mean, this, what you're looking at right here, is the start of many, many, many families in the United States. Across in these newspaper articles, it's truly sad, and I have no idea why. You know, they briefly talked about enslavement and that type thing, but nowhere near what the information is out there. And I highly encourage everybody to do your own research. Go out and look, because you can't rely on the institutions to tell you what the real deal is.
Mm-hmm. So, Grant, whenever we were talking about the fact that on a couple of the ships, whenever they arrived in Charleston and there was an outbreak of a particular disease, a lot of the Africans fled into the woods and then eventually met up with Native Americans.
Oh, yes.
Talk a little bit about that, and then let's get to yeah.
That was in all the way up here at the top, 1526, and it's basically they came from the West Indies. It was Spanish conquistadors that had enslaved Africans for a workforce on the ships, and they landed near the mouth of the Santee River. I think it was on the Charleston County side, and they had made a base camp. And sometime during that time, the disease broke out, and a lot of the Spaniards were sick, and enslaved Africans that were there, they saw their opportunity and, did an uprising, and it beat feet to the woods. And they eventually joined up with a local Indian tribe, Native American tribe. And it's the precursors to the Cusabos and stuff like that. The name's about that long, and I can't pronounce it without looking at it. But so that was the one of the very first inductions of enslaved African. That's the very first one that I can find in South Carolina, in Charleston. Was in 1526, and it was Spanish ships. You see here, the guy's name was Lucas Vasquez de Leon, and it was the first instance of African slave labor within the United States. Slaves revolted in the winter near the Santee River, and here's the name. They escaped and joined the it's Kafa Patikui or something like that.
This is the Indian tribe that they joined.
Right.
Okay, all right, okay. Text me the name and I'll post it. Yeah, text me the name and I'll post it.
Actually, you put it on the
the spreadsheet is really, really small. You can't see.
I can do the spreadsheet up.
Okay.
There you go. That's the name of the tribe right there.
Kapatachi.
I don't even think I've ever heard of that particular tribe.
Other ones came from.
Well, we'll do some research on it. Find out about that tribe. So, Grant, if you had to teach on African and Black African genealogies today, like and things that you've found today, how would you teach it in public schools? You think it should be in public schools?
Absolutely. America would not be what it is today if the enslavement had not occurred. Because people are coming to Charleston and any of the places, those people were the threads that were interwoven into the blanket of what Charleston was. They're the ones that kept it together. They had African American or African descendant fire engine companies in Charleston called Ward Engines, and
serving all of Charleston or just the Black community?
No, all of Charleston. Charleston had a board of fire masters, and they had a bunch of volunteer departments. Each volunteer fire company had a chief, but then the board of fire masters had a chief and two under chiefs, and they ran all the fire department, all the different companies. Well, to assist with those, they purchased these Hunneman hand fire engines, hand pumped engines.
Right. Yeah.
Put one in each ward, in each of the wards, and as the wards grew, they put another one in there. And there's records back during the Civil War when a lot of the white guys were all fighting the war, and Charleston was kept from burning down again by the African American companies, African descendant companies. And what it was is in that ward they would utilize enslaved labor from the different people, and there would also be free people of color in there as well. And but what would happen is if one was killed, then the owner was reimbursed for his loss of property. Firefighting is a very, very dangerous job. I've been deep in several situations where I probably shouldn't have been. I pushed too far, and there's only a few times that I've ever really, really, really been scared. And it's a controlled fear, but I've been to where I was like, whoa, and these guys were doing it without all the equipment that we had. they were, doing that. And it was a very primitive, they would blow up houses to cut the fire off and different things. And sometimes the gunpowder would go off before they got out the house and level the house on top of it. No names in the newspaper, just 2 Negro firefighters from Ward Engine 3. No names. And it's just, one of the cemeteries we're working on in Charleston, from 1817 to June 19th, 1865, there was 700 and something enslaved people that were buried in the cemetery. 83 of them, from the ages of 2 days to 89 years old, were buried with no name, nothing. I can't even fathom looking at the records and seeing a 2-day-old baby with the word slave next to it. I just can't fathom that. But even an 89-year-old woman, no name, none whatsoever. They just buried him with no name. Nobody knows who they are. They got the owner's name, but it's
So
sad.
if what you researched and what you just said, if those kind of things were taught in our public schools on an almost daily basis, what do you think the outcome would it be different as what it is today in terms of socialization, in terms of?
I think that if this information was taught, I'm talking about get down really nitty gritty.
Leaving
Don't cover. Don't whitewash anything. Don't pull no punches. Show it for what it is. I think that we as a nation would be in a much better place because we're recognizing what our faults were. Some of my family owned slaves. I mean, I can, and it's just that's just the way it was. And you look at slavery, and I think slavery, I abhor slavery, and it's just very sad what he went through. And then you have the people with the heritage not hate people, that type thing, and the states' rights, that type thing. I say, the states' rights were to continue an agricultural system based upon the back of slave labor. That was your state right. I mean, and it's a.
Well, we've had presidents who run on that theme in the past, and who were elected president based on states' rights, and they got elected.
Yes.
So I mean, we're not talking too many years back. Okay. But anyway, I just wanted to get your feelings on those things, since you're seeing the foremost person with all the knowledge, and I'm like the rest of the viewers, that I'm sure these viewers appreciate that knowledge being dispensed the way you've dispensed it, and how you've preserved it and compiled it and managed it. Obviously, it says a lot about I guess your energy that you put into it.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll tell you, my sons, they're in the Dorchester District 2 schools. And when they were in elementary school, they were in GATE classes, gifted and talented classes. And their teachers would sometimes invite me in to teach history I did genealogy one time to the class. And, when I was telling everything about people and all things, they were like, what? It's just the thing that, they just didn't, they've heard about it and stuff like this. And then I would talk about, the slavery history and stuff in Charleston, how it was. And one of the kids stood up and said, that ain't in them textbooks. I said, are you sure you got the right information? And I said, yes, sir.
Okay, well, do we have any comments from our streamers or viewers, April?
We do. Burrow McQueen says very nice research and information. And also Jan Keith, thank you for this information. Very interesting. So everyone is really interested in the historical information that you provided with us tonight.
I saw somebody at the top said they need a part 3.
As a matter of fact, here's what I'm going to suggest, because of the fact that we do have the the Democratic National Convention that a lot of people want to get to, we can save the genealogy report that I have for part 3.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
I
We can
have
save that
mine
for
as
part
well.
3. Yeah. And then we'll tackle that part. But I think this has been some very good information that you provided us tonight.
Whoa. Yeah. I appreciate it. It's like, it's become a passion of mine. I tell my boss, Dr. Ade Ofunyan, I said, sadly, I shouldn't be doing this. It should be the young African-American folks that should be taking the reins of this thing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The Benevolent Society cemeteries, once those guys started dying off and everything, there was nobody there to take over the cemeteries. So some of them got lost because of that. I've given tours to people that found people that were buried in here, and I don't know why there's not an interest, by the younger African American population. I might be wrong with that, but I've had some people, just like, I'm not interested in that stuff, and it's just, some people I know said they don't care where their family came from. And when I started being able to research, find out where my family came from, that was, it was really cool. How much time we got left?
I think we're about to wrap up.
Okay.
Unless there's something else you want to show. I was going to ask you if the Gullah Society has a website that I can post for everyone.
It's the Gullah Society I think it's .com. Let me look real quick.
You probably don't access your own website.
Yeah, I don't go there a lot.
Exactly. I'm gonna look for you as well. And I'll go to, if you have any questions or comments,
GullahSociety.com.
Okay, if you have any questions or comments for Grant, please post them below, and I will post the website as well, so that if you all want to take a look at what the Gullah Society is all about and learn a little bit more about his work and the work of, will you please say his name again? I don't want to mess it up.
My boss?
Yes,
Dr. Ade Ofunyan.
Where is Dr. Ofunyan from?
He's from Charleston. His grandfather was Philip Simmons, the blacksmith.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he discovered his African roots or whatever. He had a renaming ceremony over there. And I don't even know what his original name was. I just know him by Ade. Dr. O, Doc O. He's a hell of a guy, I'm telling you. We got a great organization with Joanna and Lachey and Tad and Raquel, and Doc, and it's a very good organization, and we're just right now starting to get a good foothold. We've got some very interesting things coming up that we'll be able to talk about another time, but there's a lot of information that we have to get out, and I think it's going to start blowing up for us. We're going to start expanding out really good.
I just think that maybe we're going to have to, if the schools don't, the public schools don't adopt a bit more information than what they're doing to convey to our students, and our ancestry like this. The community is just going to have to take it on its own, upon itself, and to build institutions, develop institutions, make sure that this kind of information is dispensed and gathered, because it's a lot. It's a lot, and like you mentioned it, Grant, part 3. I bet there's a lot to that, to a part 3.
I mean, the slave ship list I only did 4 or 5 ships right there. There was 853 ships in that period of time they came here, with 150,000 enslaved Africans. And that was minuscule in the entire slave trade operation.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it's like, I can't even wrap my brain around the numbers. I just can't. And, but, like I said, out of sight, out of mind, never affected me before. I never really had a problem with it. Not anymore. Not anymore. If somebody else is not going to do it, I'm going to be right there pushing right at the front. I'll do it.
Well, I'm sure this may serve as a catalyst for that, for having some efforts to take place, and I'll call it tasks too, by some people, viewers, who are interested in this, and let's just start the ball rolling. You know.
One thing real quick, I see Carlos Parker just wrote about genealogy website selling DNA. That is not legal. The more reputable DNA companies that I've used or I've known, they have in it that, you know, you sign and say, no, I don't want my DNA to be used by a third party. If they're going against that, then that's extremely illegal. And it, you know, it's not supposed to be done. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Don't forget, Brother Kevin did a fantastic job. That was a good video.
Yeah, I'll be there Saturday.
Yeah, submitted. And
oh, real quick,
I bet he's watching somebody's house right now. Pressure watching somebody's house right now.
I need to say real quick about the tombstones.
Okay.
I had a conversation with some people, and I thought it was a possibility they may have found some tombstones in the Waccamaw somewhere around Bucksport or Bucksville, and it was basically a false alarm. But then the guy said, "But I do know that a fellow that I know said that he has seen tombstones in Bull Creek between Port Harrelson and Edie Lake." In the river, they taken them and threw them in the river. Now, you know, we got this operation where we're going to get some people to go in there because that river is very fast right there. But if that's the case, there's a very, very good chance that some of them tombstones, if not all of them, came from the Edie Lake Cemetery. And I don't know why people do that, but you know, it's you know, I talk about these enslaved cemeteries. They were enslaved in life, and now you're enslaving them in death. They're not even resting in peace. You know, it's.
Well, that's the kind of stuff that needs to be taught in our school, and starting in junior high. Okay, elementary for that matter. So April, time on us, and we don't want to keep our viewers away from the Democratic Convention, which I'm sure everybody was looking forward to. At least it's word on the street anyway. You have any last words?
I don't. I just thank you, Grant, for being here this evening. Really do appreciate it. Wonderful information.
We're looking forward to a part 3, April. A part 3.
Yes, definitely part 3. Definitely a part 3.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So thanks everyone. I want to thank our audience, our viewers, on behalf of co-host April. And of course our guest, Mr. Mishoe, Grant Mishoe. And hey, let's not forget about our moment in Black history, none other than my sister Joelle. And she has the next time
information. I didn't know any of that. That was awesome.
Wait until the next time. She's gonna have some more. She's gonna have some more. So, but anyway, thanks to our audience, and we'll see you next week, same time at 7 p.m. Don't forget to support our advertisers who are sponsoring us and making sure that you know we're getting an effort to do these things and get our guests each week. You know, so well, thank everyone, and we'll see you next week. God bless.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.